Hey, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, Home Energy Audits, Costs, Benefits, and Payback. I'm Joe Wachunas here, as always, with Brian Stewart, my teammate, and we will introduce our panelists in just a second. Today's webinar, as usual, is brought to you by Electrify Now. It's an all-volunteer organization promoting electrification as the quickest path to decarbonization and something that we can all take an active part in achieving. It's also brought to you by the LEARN program, which is a San Diego-based workforce education and training program that has partnered with us at Electrify Now to offer these free energy efficiency and electrification webinars. Please visit the LEARN website for more information, www.sandiegolearn.com. They have got a ton of great resources. So we're talking about all the benefits of electrification for homeowners, which of course mean lower energy bills, cleaner indoor and outdoor air, and increased comfort and safety and convenience. And of course, the lower carbon pollution. And today we're going to talk about maybe the basics of electrification, home energy audits, what you do first. Brian, introduce us to this topic.
Great, Joe. Thanks. Yeah. So, maybe some of you out there have been hearing about heat pumps and heat pump water heaters and wondering, how that might work in your home, wondering about your electrical system and seeing if it would be able to accommodate these extra electrical loads. Or maybe you've just got some comfort issues in your home, a little bit chilly in the winter or a little bit too hot in the summer. Or maybe your energy bills are higher than you'd like to be paying. Of course, that applies to a lot of us. So home energy audits can be a great way to just get information addressing those kinds of questions. But essentially what you're doing is you're getting a really good picture about how well your home is working. And that's going to help you to understand how you might want to get started to improve the performance of your home, what you might want to do first, and how these things, how much they might cost and how these things can help you to save money on energy. The basic process, and of course, we're going to go into a lot of the detail of this with our panelists today, but the basic process is about hiring a certified home energy professional to come and look at your home and do an on-site inspection, understand how well your home is insulated, whether your ducts are working. They're going to look at your windows and doors and other air sealing issues that might be present in your home. They're going to look at the wiring and electrical panels and understand how the heating and water systems are working, maybe how old they are, et cetera, other appliances potentially. And then after, looking at all this, they're basically going to be giving you a recommendation on how you might want to think about upgrading your home to help reduce energy costs. And in some cases, they might even be giving you estimates of what the cost for some of those upgrades might be and how that would affect your energy usage. So that's kind of a top level overview. Of course, we're going to go through this with our panelists, but what we're going to be talking about today is why it's even worth it to get a home energy audit in the first place, how to find a contractor that's certified to do this for you near you. And are there different types of these audits, because there are different sorts of people that do them, and how does one choose the right kind of audit? And then there's also something you might have been hearing about because the Department of Energy is rolling out this program called Home Energy Score. And so we'll talk about how energy audit is different or the same as a home energy score kind of analysis. And then we're going to talk, of course, about what's included, how long does it take, roughly how much these things cost. And then, a lot of it has to do with helping educate us on how to get the most out of the process. So I think anyone who goes into this energy audit, knowing kind of what questions to ask and what you're really trying to find out, will have a better experience. So hopefully you'll get some takeaways in that area as well. So I'm really excited to introduce our two expert panelists today. We've got, I can't imagine two better people to talk to us about this. We'll be starting off hearing from Bryn Cooksey. He's the owner of Air Doctors Heating and Cooling. Bryn is affectionately known as the Air Doctor. He's a Detroit native and earned that nickname for his renowned engineering solutions in the HVAC industry. He worked for 15 years in the utility and gas power industry, and then took over his family's heating and cooling business and rebranded it Air Doctors. Bryn studied HVAC technology at Henry Ford College in Dearborn, Michigan, and later became a professor there. And he has trained over 10,000 HVAC technicians, electricians, and energy auditors. So, like I said, this guy knows his stuff when it comes to energy audits. Then we're going to be hearing from Madeline Salzman. She's an associate director from Earth Advantage. Earth Advantage, if you don't know, it is a national nonprofit focused on equitable housing decarbonization. Madeline focuses on scaling policies, standards, and programs that drive funding and financing towards home energy upgrades that are aligned with decarbonization priorities. Prior to joining Earth Advantage, Madeline managed the Home Energy Score program at the Department of Energy, oversaw green buildings workforce initiatives, and advised on the rollout of the Inflation Reduction Act home energy rebates. So 2 great panelists, and we're going to kind of jump in today with sort of Q&A, and we might be seeing a few slides later on as we get into some of the details, but welcome Madeline and Bryn to our program today.
Happy to be
Thanks for
here.
having
Thanks
us.
so much.
All right, Bryn, maybe just to start us off, I know we did a little bio there, but those are always kind of top line. Tell us a little bit about, you know, what you do in your organization and how that relates to home energy audits.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having us, Brian. Once again, my name is Brian Cooksey. At Air Doctors, we're a home performance contractor. So our business, if you will, is to go into a customer's home or business, evaluate the building systems, such as the building shell or enclosure, the mechanical systems, ventilation system, and we come up with a whole home solution. And then we work with that customer to leverage incentives, rebates, tax credits to fulfill that job. And then once we're done with the solutions, we test out just to ensure that we hit our mark. And we service the Southeast Michigan or Metro Detroit area.
Great, great.
Yeah. Well, Bryn, tell us a little bit, you know, get us into home energy audits. How do they work? What's the process, and what is a goal of home energy audits?
That's a very good question, Joe. So energy audit is a phenomenal way to understand exactly what's going on with your home or business. If you think of yourself and you're at your home, some customers might have the tendency to kind of guess at things that are troubling them, such as if they're uncomfortable in certain rooms or maybe their bills are high. They will guess at repairs, maybe call a qualified contractor to solve a problem, only to find out that that repair really didn't solve what they were looking for. So to stop that and really get to the nuts and bolts of your issue, you should get a home energy audit. And what a home energy audit is, it's a combination of diagnostic testing and physical inspections where we look at a home or business. We are going to collect data about the home. We're going to collect the customer's fuel bills, the utility bills. We're going to run diagnostic testing, and we're going to put that into a software. The formulas in the software are going to help leverage the information we put in, the weather patterns of the area, and then also the recommendations we're looking to do. And it's going to come up with a list or priorities of what the customer should invest in. And those priorities are going to have some financial backing. Like if you were to do a heat pump, will it be cost effective for you? If you were going to replace a window, is that going to be beneficial for you? So it really takes the guesswork out of home repairs so that the customer is completely armed with just the information that they need.
And so does this, like, I mean, starting at the very beginning, like, how does somebody find you to do this kind of work? I mean, is it, does someone just type in like energy audit Detroit and then people's names come up, or what's the process of finding somebody to do this work?
That's a part of it. It is our business, so we do market to put ourselves out there so customers can find us. But energy efficiency is such a big problem. There are several stats out there that for every dollar you put in, you're only getting 70 cents out of your electric bill. We have some pretty serious waste in our American housing stock. So with that being said, to get audits done, there's a lot of support from weatherization agencies. There's support from utility companies. You really just have to look for it. There's many avenues and stakeholders who are looking to support that energy audit process. So you can get it, if you're income eligible, you can get it from a weatherization agency that will provide an energy audit for you. The utility companies across the country have various programs to help with that. There's always subsidies for energy audits. Or if you're a customer just looking to get to the root of the problem, you can always look for a contractor that specializes in that. So it's if you want an energy audit, there's definitely ways to get it.
Got it. Yeah, it seems like some of the, like I've noticed that some of the HVAC contractor, well, you're an HVAC contractor, so I noticed that some of them also offer like energy evaluations. Sometimes they'll have a different name for them or something. And my guess is those are typically probably not as thorough as what you do, but I don't know, it might be all over the place. I mean, what's your experience with what a HVAC installer is typically doing that's in this space?
You may see some HVAC professionals focus on that. The HVAC system is about 40% of your utility costs. So they're the energy users in your home or business. Um, we like to do a deep dive. We like to get into the nitty gritty with an audit. The true benefit of an audit is that it eliminates all the guesswork. If you have an uncomfortable area in your home, the great way to find it is to do an audit with all the diagnostic testing. So it's not a quick evolution. Depending on the house size, it could take a couple hours to do the field work, and then that trained professional also has to manipulate the stuff inside the software program. So it's not a quick process by far, but it's really detailed. And again, the goal is it eliminates all guesswork. The customer's not going to invest in something and it's a guess. Oftentimes, the audit part is the test-in part of solutions. Once the solutions are done, the auditor typically will go back and test out just to ensure that they hit the mark.
Gotcha.
Well, Bryn, it's okay. So it takes a couple hours for a good energy audit, but maybe walk us through what are some of the key pieces of information that people get out of their energy audit so they can know that they're getting a quality one done.
Sure. So when I arrive at a customer's premises, we usually do an external inspection first. We'll look for things that can be degrading to the home, such as moisture, foundation issues. We also look for health and safety issues. That's a part of the audit as well. Energy efficiency and some health and safety issues are linked, so we do look for those. And then we look at all the appliances. Are they using energy correctly? Are they in disrepair? Do they need to be repaired? Do they need to be replaced? We do diagnostic testing on the mechanical system. So we test the efficiency and safety of combustion appliances. We test the efficiency and safety of other appliances like heat pumps and air conditioners. And then we evaluate the building shell or enclosure. So we're looking at the attic insulation. Is it adequate? Was the home air sealed? We're looking at, does the home have wall insulation? All that data gets put into that software program for evaluation.
Gotcha. And do you typically do a blower door test?
We do. That's one of the chief agents or most powerful tools of the diagnostic testing is the blower door. The blower door test is a way to evaluate the shell leakage, the building enclosure leakage. The way that works, Brian, if I have a leaky building, I'm going to pay more in utility costs to condition that structure. Additionally, when I have a leaky structure, I could bring unwanted moisture inside that building. So if I understand the leakage rate and I fix it by air sealing, I can reduce energy consumption and reduce the transport of moisture. So it's really, really important to do a blower door test.
I've got this picture. I don't know if people can see this. We had one done at our house not long ago. I'm going to assume this probably looks pretty much like what you do, Bryn, where you tape the door sealed shut with this plastic film and then have this big fan here that generates tons of CFM that's blowing air out of the house. And yeah.
I started to ask you, did you follow me around? That looked pretty familiar.
Yeah. And I thought this was really interesting when we did it in our house because you could literally walk around the house and feel where the air is coming into the house and from some unexpected places like light sockets and, closets. Maybe you look in your closet, you don't even know what's in there, and maybe you find a little chase from one of your plumbing, like sewer chase or something like that, a clean out, and it's somehow getting air in from the outside. So there's very unexpected places where you find some of this leakage, right, Brent?
Absolutely. And to enhance the effectiveness of this tool, the blower door will tell you how much air leakage the building shell has, but it doesn't tell you where. To make the blower door more effective or to get more information, many energy auditors will carry a thermal imaging camera with them. Mm-hmm. And while the blower door is operating, they can walk around and look at the structure and see those physical leaks through the heat emissions that's happening with your house. So blower doors are by far the best type of audits that you can have.
That's great. Hey, speaking of the infrared camera thing, so Does that work better like at certain times of years? Like, does it work better when it's cold outside? Those kinds of tools, or hot outside, or how does that work?
That is a very good question. So the thermal imagers on the market now work best with at least a 20-degree differential temperature between inside and outside. So a hot summer day, it'll totally work if the air conditioner's been running. Cold winter days, best time ever. I have a really, really high delta T, especially in our neck of the woods in Michigan. We can get quite cold. If I go in the wintertime and I can see the contrast, that really lets me know where my air leaks are.
So would you recommend an energy audit in the summer or winter for those reasons, and maybe not in the climates to the outside
That's a
similar to the inside?
That's a good question, Joe. We do them all year round. We may look for certain days to do certain aspects of it, or it may change the time of day that we do it. Like in the summertime, to get to that closer to 20-degree mark, we may defer our audits to the afternoon during the heat of the day while the air conditioner is running, so that way we can get that contrast. So you can do them all year round, but you do have to do a little planning if you're going to have some of those challenges.
Gotcha.
How about cost, Bryn? What we saw is somebody's putting links in the chat. PG&E has a free home energy audit, and you said that a lot of weatherization agencies provide these for free. But if folks are having to, purchase an energy audit with their own cash, what should they expect to pay?
That's a very good question. That depends on the market, and it also depends on how deep you want the audit to go. There's various tasks that could be included or excluded based on what the customer wants. On a low end, $300 will get you a site assessment and maybe a blower door test. You could have some audits as high as $2,000 where they get deep into duct leakage diagnostics. They get to indoor air quality testing. All that can be included into the audit. So you would want to have a good conversation with your auditing professional and be specific about your problems and have them explain what tests they're going to conduct to help resolve those problems. And then that will help you guide you to make the best decision.
Gotcha. So I'm sure there are some certifications in this space, right? That help, like if you're a homeowner and you're just wanting to make sure you're getting somebody who really knows what they're doing. How would someone know that they're working with the right kind of person?
Very good question. Certification is 100% the mark customers should use. There are several in the market. One of the more popular ones is from the Building Performance Institute. BPI is a standards organization and certification body. So they make their standards by taking experts throughout the country to convene standards, and they base their certification exams on those standards and best practices. So when a person takes their certification exam, it's a heavily vetted process, and even some of their exams are ANSI accredited, where they're really, really vetted. So certification is going to demonstrate to your customer that you have the technical capability, you understand what the best practices are. So I definitely recommend certification.
Gotcha. Hey, while we're on that cost question, I think there are some incentives for these kind of, well, the IRA has one. So if you get one done before the end of the year, I think it was $600, wasn't it? Or do I have that right?
I think the IRA audit is $150 for the tax credit.
Oh, $150. Sorry.
Yeah. If you get a qualified audit who's BPI certified, you get a tax credit for $150. And as you alluded to, that does expire at the end of this year. So you have until December 31st. Across the country, there's all kinds of subsidies available for energy audits. Utility rebates, I know locally, the utility company gives an additional $100 on top of the tax credit. So if you even work with a total home performance contractor, oftentimes they'll remove the risk from the audit by crediting that audit costs into the solutions, which will make it even more sweet for the customer. So definitely look up the incentives, but they're all over the place for energy audits.
Gotcha. Just on the last point, I think that's really interesting. So it could be an HVAC installer who is qualified to do a good energy audit, and they might pass some of those costs on to like a new heat pump or something. But it also could be like an insulation based company, right? Who might also pass some of those costs from the audit onto a discount on the installation work. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yep. So for example, if I interact with a client and I sell them a new heat pump from the audit, and let's say the audit justified a heat pump, if we move forward the project, our business will credit 100% of that audit cost back to the
Yeah, that's
customer.
great.
Yeah, that way they remove the risk, they went forward with the job, and it's really a win-win for them, and they still get to keep their incentive. So it's audits are no-brainers.
Brent, Jeffrey's maybe asking if there might be a little conflict of interest if HVAC contractors are doing that versus just professionals who just do audits. Do you have any sense on that? So folks can.
That is a very good question, and then we do get that question quite honestly a lot. The beautiful thing about the audit is that it's diagnostic testing that comes from tools and technology. Once the solutions are done, if it's a contractor that is doing their own audits and there's a fear of a conflict of interest, we always test out. If we test out using the same practices or premise that we did the audit with, you get to see if we hit our mark or not. So some markets it's okay, some markets it's not allowed, but testing out is key. Even if it's somebody else, somebody should always test out.
When you say test out, you mean test after the measures have been completed?
Yep. You're almost doing a post audit, if you will, a complete different audit to verify that you hit your mark. You resolve the problems that the customer said that they had.
Gotcha. And so is that like an additional cost then if you're doing that you have to like go through the process again? Are you saying is that typically is or can be included in the?
It's generally included. If it's a contractor, a full service contractor like Joe was mentioning, typically that's included into the project, or a contract can be written up where there is a third party that's going to verify that. And it's a whole industry for auditors that do that with the new construction industry called raters. That's exactly what that process is.
Interesting, yeah.
Bryn, a couple folks are asking about the software that you use to evaluate data.
Sure. We use Snug Pro. Snug Pro is fantastic software. We use it for a number of different reasons. It's easy and the reports are pretty clear and easy to understand. It has BPI 2400 compliant, so it has the formulas to calibrate energy audits. And what calibration means, we're going to put physical utility data inside the software, and that is going to help the software understand, based on the building features, is the building using appropriate amounts of energy. So the calibration is important because certain programs like the Homes in Here from DOE, it is required for the home program to have a calibrated audit.
Interesting.
Yep, and I have a software report here too we can show you.
Oh yeah, why don't we look at that report?
Okay, let's take a look at what that looks like.
And this is a sample report here. This is fictitious, but it's a sample report. This is an energy audit, and this is what the customer can actually expect to get once the audit is completed. So it's full of pictures, and one of the first things we do, we get a lot of concerns from the customer. Why did you call us out? Was it high utility bills? Were you uncomfortable? What's going on? Was it an indoor air quality issue? As we collect their concerns, we can calibrate the audit by putting field bills in, and the audit will take the information we put in and leverage recommendations we're going to make, like attic insulation or heat pump. Once we put the recommendations in, it's going to tell us if we're how much carbon emissions we're going to reduce. It's going to tell us what our new footprint is going to be. So it's really good data. Additionally, it's going to give us a work order of recommendations. And this is kind of the magic of the audit. I can give this to a customer and I can say, hey, this is what we found, and we're going to put it in order and what you really should invest in. And this SIR number here, this is pretty important to a customer. This is savings to investment. And what that means is, will this energy efficiency retrofit project, will it pay for itself in its lifetime? And you'll find that items maybe like windows may have a very low SIR. You may move before that window pay for itself. So maybe that's not the project you should go after. Well, maybe sealing air leaks, maybe it will. Maybe it will pay for itself. Maybe we should do this first. So with that being said, the customer has no guesswork. It's all laid out, and they can kind of make the decision of what they want to go after first.
So
Uh,
Brent,
and
is this saying that if that number is over one, that then it will pay for itself, and under one it won't? Or how do you interpret the numbers?
Very good question. Yep, over one will pay for itself. If it's below one, it means in its lifetime, in its rated average lifetime, that it's expected that product to last or that system to last. If it's below one, it means it won't pay for itself. Now, again, these are fictitious numbers with fictitious pricing, but this will vary based on the climate zone. A energy efficiency project may have a different payback or SIR in Michigan where it's different in Florida. So you have to take that into account. You have to work with your auditor to help them for the customer to make the best decision based on their local area.
Gotcha. And then I guess I'm sure there's some subjective stuff here too. Like I'm just looking at your insulate attic thing. This is saying that in this fictitious sample, it's saying that it wouldn't pay for itself, but it might be worth it just to make your house more comfortable, right? So
Absolutely.
that's a conversation I guess you have, right?
You have to have that, and we do purchase things for comfort. I live in the Midwest where we get quite humid. Air conditioners won't pay for themselves in our climate, but I won't buy a house without an air conditioner. So you just have to be honest and have that conversation with your customer to help them understand that it may not be cost effective, but it may make you comfortable.
Gotcha. Do you find in general, are there typical things that are generally speaking big bang for the buck when you see, I'm imagine in older homes, there's probably some pretty common things that are just sort of no-brainers, and then some others that are going to be more, I don't know, dependent. Is that true, or is it just that vary from region to region also?
That varies from region to region. So I'll speak for Michigan. Air sealing is quite effective here locally. Forced air furnaces, usually in our housing stock, Metro Detroit, we have an older housing community. A lot of homes were built in the 20s and 30s. So they often didn't have any insulation and they were not air sealed. So air sealing and the insulation of the attic and walls typically has a pretty high SIR. It's like usually over 2 or 3. Forced air furnaces, another conversation for another day. A lot of forced air furnaces and air conditioners were not sized properly. So when we properly size them, we see that if we went to a higher efficiency furnace and we reduce the capacity to proper, we see a high SIR for that. And that's our local market. Now, this may vary. You go to Florida where they don't have as many heating hours. They're not as cool. A furnace may not pay for itself, or the installation may not be as valuable. So it's really an area dependent process.
Got you. I think I heard you say that the furnaces, and I think this is true for heat pumps too, they're often oversized. Is that what you were saying?
That's where I was headed. Yep.
And then they don't operate as efficiently because they're turning on and off too frequently. Is that kind of the basics?
That's the basics. And liken it to your car, Brian. If you were to um, look at your car and compare it from highway miles to city miles, most people will say that the highway is more efficient, steady state, less wear and tear. I don't stop as often if I had a combustion engine. Well, having an oversized system is like driving a car in a city, rapid starts and stops and that kind of thing. So we use that analogy to communicate, and that's something that the software programmer is going to help us aggregate.
Great. Well, maybe one more question and then we can hear on home energy scores. That sounds good.
Yeah. So Brent, I just wanted to double check. So it sounds like then like a heating load calculation is also then part of a typical audit. I don't know. Is that I don't know, was there a report? Is that part of your report that you show people?
It is. It is. I'll pull it back up here. It's two energy audits. I'm sorry, two load calculations are done. We have one that as is that shows you what your load really is supposed to be at this point in time. And then we have one that will show you if you made all the recommendations that we're proposing, this is what your new load would be. For example, here it is. Let me zoom in. So you have two load calculations done here. So right now, let's look at the heating load specifically. We have a base load of 70,000 BTUs. So we need to find a furnace or heat pump that can deliver that. Well, after we weatherize the building shell, reduce the consumption of the appliances, maybe we did some lighting upgrades. We went from old incandescent lights to CFLs. We now have a load of 48,000. So it kind of paints the picture and shows the customer that, hey, once we do these modifications, this is what the new capacity of the equipment will be. And that's some big time energy savings.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, very cool. Maybe one last one, Bryn, and then we'll come back to you as well. Are there any good questions that you could recommend homeowners ask, before the process or during or even after the energy audit? Anything they can take with them to ask their contractors?
That's a very good question. So I typically will advise customers to ask the auditor about their process, like what software system are they using, what would the reports give them, and then maybe ask for some sample reports to see what information you're going to be getting, so that way you can feel comfortable with the investment, and ask specific questions about the time it's going to take. Again, to do a thorough audit, you're in a house for multiple hours, and then there's some software evaluation on top of that. So if there's anything quick or anything like that, it may not be a professional audit. If you're looking for a deep dive to solve your problems, you want a robust energy audit.
Yeah, I could see how just being able to see that sample that you showed is super impressive. I mean, being able to see one of those in advance would give you a really good idea about what you're paying for, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, great. Well, thanks, Brent, so much. And yeah, we'll keep you on here. But yeah, let's turn over to Madeline to talk about home energy scores. Madeline, thanks so much for being here with us. And maybe to start us off, tell us a little bit, just like Brent, tell us a little bit more about Earth Advantage and your work there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad I get to go after Bryn has gone through like a lot of the technical details of the components of an audit, and zoom out a little bit. But my name is Madeline Salzman. I'm the Associate Director of Market Solutions for Earth Advantage. Earth Advantage is a nonprofit based in Portland, Oregon. However, I'm based in Washington, D.C. And as we mentioned at the top, we focus on how to improve housing for people and for the planet. We say we focus on having a more informed and humane housing market. And we do that in a variety of different ways. Our history is a lot of work focused specifically in the Portland metropolitan region and Oregon statewide. But increasingly, we've been finding, we have a lot of solutions that are worth sharing outside of Oregon. And not only that I think we really value partnership, and that includes both the community-based organizations that we do a lot of work with, as well as the federal government, and trying to see if there's ways that we can kind of align the interests that folks have across those groups. So I joined Earth Advantage 2 years ago. And before that, I was at the U.S. Department of Energy for 8 years, focused generally on how to improve the market for housing decarbonization, including electrification, as well as energy efficiency. And when I think about the challenge that we're facing as a country, I would say at a high level, US housing is not decarbonizing at the necessary pace to meet whether you want to focus on our climate goals or energy and affordability or dealing with inequality that exists in housing or health. There are lots of great reasons to support improving our housing across the country, but it's just not happening at the pace that we need to see in order to, meet that in any realistic timeline, hopefully in our lifetimes. And one of the problems that we focus on here at Earth Advantage for why we think that's happening is that the value of homes with lower energy bills and lower carbon emissions is simply not broadly recognized. It's not being understood. Homeowners, home buyers, renters, they want those things. You ask them, do you want a home that uses more or less energy? They'll tell you less. They want efficiency, they want comfort, they want indoor air quality to be improved, but they don't know how to get it. And so a lot of the work that I do at Earth Advantage is focused on how can we support data standards and transparency that helps everybody involved in this system make better and more informed decisions about how to improve their homes and make investments that will actually improve their lives. So, when we think about this problem, we think, of course, about the current owner, and that's, I think, a lot of the most common use case of somebody looking up Bryn's company and wanting an energy audit, saying, hey, my house is not serving my needs currently, and what can he do about it? But we're also thinking about, how do we help potential home buyers or renters understand what's happening in homes that they're looking at that are on the marketplace? And not only that, how do you help governments and policymakers design programs that really meet the needs of the housing stock that they have in their jurisdiction, so that we better understand what are we dealing with out in the marketplace? And, can we reach households that have had, systemic disinvestment from energy efficiency and electrification technologies to actually deliver better benefits?
Yeah, so I mean, I know from personal experience, it feels like sometimes in buying or selling a home, we were selling a home that we had done all these energy efficiency upgrades, and the real estate agent basically just wanted to talk about what kind of countertops we had in the kitchen, so, and I get that, but it feels to me like that. So I guess where I'm circling around is that the home energy score thing, one of the major, it has a couple of big benefits. One of them is about in that transaction time, right? When you're either deciding, oh, what I want to rent apartment A or apartment B, or do I want to buy house A or house B, you get a lot more information about what it's going to feel like to live there, right?
Absolutely. And the reports that come with a home energy score are trying to give like a better, more comprehensive picture of what you might expect from a house that you're looking to maybe live in. Some of the ways I like to talk about home energy score. So it's a program that's overseen by the US Department of Energy. It's really like a software tool, and it can be used by businesses, by utilities, by states, by local governments to support better data standardization and transparency, so that when people call up an energy auditor to get more information, this can be one of the ways that that information is collected and reported, to then be able to get a much better picture of what's happening across housing. And so when I was at DOE, some of the ways I would talk about this is, we're very used to having standard information in a lot of our lives. If you were to go buy a car, you're used to seeing a miles per gallon sticker or rating on that car. That's actually a program that's operated by the US EPA, and they have a whole protocol of how to create an MPG rating and provide that on cars. Similarly, when we go to the grocery store and buy food, we're used to seeing nutrition facts labels on that food to help us understand, what are we buying, what's in this. And that's actually a program that's overseen and operated by the federal government as well, to help all of us come to a better understanding of what's in these products. But we haven't had such a thing be working in the housing market so far. And of course, home energy score is really focused on the energy piece. And part of that is it's typically the largest expenditure that's not being accounted for in current assessments of affordability of housing. So if you go to try to get a mortgage loan for a home that you're looking to purchase, they will take into account your income, they'll take into account the insurance on the property, the expected property taxes, as well as, the overall cost of the home, but they're not typically taking into account what your energy bills might run. And this is, actually on average higher than insurance in most of the country. Of course, we've seen insurance prices be changing pretty dramatically throughout the country, in part because of energy use causing climate change, causing disasters that are impacting the insurance industry. But even with those changes, energy still typically represents a higher cost for most homeowners around the country. So by having this data be more available, we hope that folks can have a better understanding of what they can actually afford and what the living experience might be in a home, as well as fundamentally, the goal there is to then drive more access to funding and financing for making improvements to those homes. The goal is not just to say, awesome, you've already made improvements, although if you have, great. But to then, if you have this data available in a standardized way, governments can then say, hey, look, there's a whole chunk of homes in our jurisdiction that are not getting access to these materials and these resources, and we really want to make sure we make those things available to those households.
Gotcha. So, okay, maybe we should just get right to a little bit of like, what's the difference between a home energy score and a home energy audit? And
Yeah.
Bryn, I think you do both, I think, right? Is that right, Bryn?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in general, I would say an energy audit is a larger scope of potential activities that somebody's taking on. It's everything Bryn was talking about. It can include diagnostic testing. It should include a blower door test. I think as we've all I heard Bryn say as well. And assessment of utility bills and everything. Home energy score, we want to think of as kind of a standard component that can be included. It's one of the tools in the toolbox that we can deploy as part of an energy audit. Um, you know, one of the things that's interesting in this space, so BPI, the Building Performance Institute, was mentioned earlier, that is an organization that has helped kind of identify what should be in an energy audit. However, there's really, depending on where you are in the country, who you're talking to, there's really vastly different services that may or may not be included in an energy audit. Sometimes people say they're providing an energy audit, but they're doing a very high level assessment of the home. They're not going into as much detail as what Bryn is showing. And so home energy score is just one of the ways to help have a standard set of data, as at least as a minimum of what's being collected, and also a standard report that's being delivered based off of that data. So, and Bryn, feel free to chime in here as well, but you're most of the time, an energy audit, I would think, for the size and scope that Bryn is talking about, runs you like a few $100s. Home energy score can usually be delivered as just a standalone item more cheaply, but it could also be something that's basically tacked on to a larger energy audit as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you, Maddie. The energy score, as you mentioned, it looks at more of the home's assets that's inside the home, the style of equipment, the assets, the features of the home. It doesn't account for operational costs, so it's not a deep dive into bills, but it does look at the assets. In comparison, if I have more modern assets or high efficiency assets and I'm comparing two homes, the newer home would have a better score. What we do, we incorporate the energy score as a part of our audits. So we'll say, let's do the energy audit and let's score your home to show you where you're at now. And the information is, a lot of the information is the same, the audit being more robust, but the audit will account for operational cost. If you had I'm not alone. I was fussed at as a kid when I walked out of a room and I didn't turn the light out, right? The audit is going to account for operational costs, those things, habits that the customer may have, where the score is just going to look at the assets. But we do them both, and the score is a part of our audit process.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Bryn. And I can just, if people are like, why doesn't it include the utility bill? So for whatever it's worth, because home energy score is really designed with this data standardization piece in mind, and with this idea of how to incorporate into real estate transactions and to rental transactions to help consumers understand what they're looking for. Ultimately, a buyer or a renter wants to know, if I bring my own energy usage patterns and desires for high or low temperatures to this home, what experience might I have versus, that could be wildly different from the current resident of that home. And so, always we can make these comparisons to the other labels. An MPG rating, somebody could have owned a car before and driven with flat tires and the windows down the whole time, and they're not achieving that rated MPG rating. But that doesn't necessarily pertain to the next owner of that car and how they're going to treat it. And so home energy score is applying kind of standard assumptions for how an average user uses the home. And in general, what you'll find is, if you are a lower energy consumer and that's something you're really conscious about, you might have a bit lower energy bills, but that will be across the board of what the home energy score is showing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So maybe, oh, sorry, Bryn, were you going to?
I was just going to piggyback on Maddie. with this energy score also, I think I was reading somewhere, like if you were to qualify for a home mortgage, to qualify to pay the service of debt, if you were to get a mortgage, is roughly 20 to 30% of your income is typically where banks are comfortable. And if you get into a home that has a high utility burden, it can then make that home unaffordable because of the high utility bills. So I think the score is the absolute way to go. It's going to give
Right.
that asset analysis to help customers make the best decision.
So maybe we should jump, maybe Matt, you can show us a little bit about that, about what a home energy score looks like. And that'll maybe also help us understand how they're a little bit different than the home energy
Yeah.
audit. But it seems like the number itself is a pretty interesting thing that's automatically different. You get a number, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so for whatever it's worth, this is a image from the US Department of Energy. I will note it's about 4 years old now. So, but luckily it doesn't have numbers on it. So you can basically imagine the pattern over the last 4 years is similar, but the bubbles would maybe be relatively larger as we've had more scores over the last 4 years. But this is just kind of to show nationwide. This is something that DOE keeps track of like where scores are happening, where there are home energy score assessors that are trained to deliver these around the country. And then these states in green, there's actually a number of states that have either at a state or local government level, some level of policy going on that is incorporating home energy score into real estate transactions or as like a standard component of information that people are getting when they participate in a utility program or in a real estate program.
So Maddie, just on this point,
Yeah.
is this true that, in order for this program to really have the desired effect, it has to be something that everyone's kind of almost required to do, right? Because you can't compare two homes if one has an energy score and the other one doesn't have a score. So is it true then that really to make this work, you have to have at least local legislation that's mandating the use of this tool? Is that?
I don't want to say that it's required for it to work, but it definitely helps drive the bigger impact. So, for example, Earth Advantage helps implement home energy scores in the state of California. The state of California has a home energy score rebate program offered through the CPUC that historically has just been offered in the Bay Area of California, where you can get a rebate to help cover the cost of a home energy score. And you can see there's a lot of, dots here over the Bay Area that are contributing to that larger amount. Actually, starting in January of 2026, that program is expanding to be available statewide across California. So still within the CPUC regulated utilities, but generally anywhere where you're paying into those public benefit programs, you will now starting in January be eligible for receiving an incentive for a home energy score. So we're going to start seeing a lot more growth outside of the Bay Area of California as well.
But they're
Within
approaching
California,
sorry, but they're approaching it from
that's voluntary.
It's a carrot approach. It's sort of like, we're making it easy for you to do this. It's not a requirement to do it in order to sell your home.
Correct. However, in Berkeley, California, and in Piedmont, California, it is a requirement. And, I know there's other cities around the state that have been considering if this is something they want to do as well. And so, you start to see many more scores be appearing, obviously, if it's a required element of real estate transactions, and it's happening more regularly. And that's when you start to really see some of the benefits of home energy score relating to home sales and home appraisals and mortgage default and some of those things. But that whole part of the system only works really well when the potential buyers and renters have access to the information. If that's not the landscape, if it's more of a carrot approach, it can still help you as a homeowner better understand your own home. And then, you can do things like comparing the energy bills and saying, whoa, my energy bills are really different from what the average user is expected to use. That might help inform, how much behavioral strategies you'd want to take on as the homeowner or explore, if there's just a lot of equipment being used in the home, stuff like that. So it can still be a useful resource, but it's more on a local level, like for the individual that's receiving the home energy score.
Madeline, I was wondering, would it be possible to look to actually see a home energy score and kind of see what one looks like?
Yes. The only other thing I'll just say here, though, is that around the country, there's been about 280,000 home energy scores completed. Earth Advantage has helped create over 80,000 of those. So about 1 in 3, 1 in 4 home energy scores around the country have been ones that we've helped generate. So at Earth Advantage, we operate a website called the Green Building Registry. This actually helps us collect a lot of different certifications around the country. Not, home energy score is one of these, but we collect data from green certifications all over. And we have more than 3.7 million home records in this database, and this is publicly available. Now, not necessarily every single home energy score is publicly available, but we have 24,000 that have been delivered in California. And as I've mentioned, the vast majority of those have been in the Bay Area program that's expanding to go statewide. And then if you zoom in further, this is Berkeley, California. And so you start to see a lot more scores where this requirement exists. Very similarly, in Oregon, there are the city of Portland and Milwaukee and Hillsborough and Bend have required real estate listing transactions. So you start to see some expand statewide, but you see many, many more, close to 60,000 now, but primarily in regions where you have those requirements. So you can click on a house. This is within the Green Building Registry. This is a home in California in Piedmont. And this home has a publicly available report. So we can see it has a home energy score of 3. We can also see it has renewable energy generation, and we can download the report, which I've already done, and it's right here. So there are elements of these reports that are dictated by the U.S. Department of Energy, and then there are elements that states or cities can decide to customize to their own specific needs. So this home's current score is basically how this home performs compared to, standard assumptions around other homes, and that's set through a methodology set by the U.S. Department of Energy. In California, though, they want to show what homes could have if they had a specific set of recommended shell improvements that are in alignment with Title 24 and also with incentives that are available in the state. And then also wanted to model the home with full electrification. So you can see that this home has a current score of 3. If it makes shell improvements, we'll get up to a home energy score of 7. And then if it does electrification on top of the shell improvements, then it will have a home energy score of 10. And it will also calculate the energy usage for elements at each of these points, again, using a standard user assumption. Shows the home's carbon footprint. You can see that this home can practically get to carbon neutral despite being, below average on the score right now, has the potential to get to almost carbon neutral if it conducts these upgrades. The next page.
Just if you go up a little bit,
Yeah.
It's interesting to point out here that, if you look at the after full electrification, this is California specific, but you can see the actual cost of operating it went up a little bit. So I think it's just interesting because basically what California is saying that we want this program to help with energy costs, but we also want it to help with decarbonization. That's a goal that they've baked into this tool, correct?
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, and frankly, yes, this is sometimes a pattern we see decently commonly in California, and a lot of this is a rates problem in California, quite frankly, that is not so present in other states. So one thing I'm very excited for is for other states to adopt this similar report, and we can start to see, the ways that rate structures can really impact the overall energy bills that might be associated with certain types of upgrades. But yeah, the reasoning behind the California report becomes more clear when you get down to this section and see, oh my gosh, you can, really have all these carbon benefits that are being reflected here.
Cool. Gotcha. Well, I'm wondering if is there anything else to close out to look at this, and then we can ask you both a couple.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I showed, the report also provides links to available resources. These change depending on the geolocation of the home, so regional and local incentives. It provides a list of the recommended improvements that are being given to the home based, to create those scores, to go from a 3 to a 7 to a 10. And so, now in the Bay Area and soon in all of California, there's going to be a lot more data around, what homes have solar panels, what type of water heating. They also collect information about electrical wiring needs and stuff like that. So there's now databases that these programs can refer to figure out what they need. And then the last page gives space for the home energy assessor to provide additional comments or recommendations, and then some local information about, the benefits of participating in some of these upgrades.
That's very cool.
And Oregon, just as an example, has a different style of report, but it still follows the Department of Energy's requirements of providing this score. This home has a 6, shows energy costs, and then on the next page could become a 9 and save $350 a year with energy improvements that are written here. So this is just a result of different states having different priorities of things they want to showcase.
Cool.
That's really interesting. So it
Yeah.
sounds like one of the questions you should ask your energy auditor when you're trying to decide who to work with is whether you'll get a home energy score out of the process, right? It seems like that should be like, that would be great, because
Totally.
then you get a little bit of, you get maybe the best of both worlds that way. Yeah.
And what Bryn mentioned at the beginning also of, or at one point that, getting a test out is really valuable. And I think one of the value points that Bryn was talking about is, making sure the work was done well. Another thing is that you can get a test out home energy score after you've made improvements to really recognize the full value of this home. So, if you don't live in an environment where there's a requirement for listing, you maybe would be hesitant to list a really low score. But if you've made improvements, or if you've, benefited from government supported improvements or anything else, let's make sure that you're really showcasing the value when you go then to sell your home and benefit more fully from the upgrades.
Yeah.
One point I wanted to make, because we've been mostly talking about in the context of home ownership. And I think when you're thinking about a home energy audit, you're typically thinking about home ownership and I own this building, I want to improve it, or even a commercial building. But the home energy score has a really interesting kind of equity value on rental properties as well. Is that correct, Maddie?
Yeah. I had the opportunity to do some analysis with the state of Oregon that was trying to explore what it could look like to do disclosure for rental properties. And, folks familiar in this industry will, we've talked a lot and historically over the years about the split incentive where, the landlord typically does not have an incentive to make energy efficiency improvements because they don't pay for the energy bills, whereas the renter does. And, there's a hope that something like a home energy score disclosure policy for rental listings could help mitigate some of the split incentive, because then you start to provide landlords with a bit of an incentive that their home it might rent faster and be more appealing if you can show that it has lower energy bills associated with it. City of Gainesville, Florida was actually the first city in the country to pursue a rental disclosure policy. They've had a little bit of trouble with the governor there interfering, but we would love to see more cities around the country or states pursuing rental disclosure as a way to kind of mitigate rental energy burdens and support upgrades in rental housing.
That's great. Well, I mean, we are getting to our time. I wonder if a good closing question for you both is, and maybe starting with you, Bryn, how, what's your best advice on how consumers should use their home energy audit information? And then maybe same to you, Madeline, how can they use that information that you provide?
I would encourage customers to, before you make any kind of major investment in your home, to get an energy audit. And when you get an energy audit, look at the priority list and leverage that priority list based on what your actual issues are. Before making a major purchase, you get the audit done, you now have time to actually sit and focus on what needs to be done and what's a comfort issue, what will actually be a profit center for your pocketbook. So I would get the audit done and then use the audit to kind of help guide your decisions. That's the best use of it.
And that can be a roadmap, right, Brandon? It could be over time. People can, if they don't have the budget to do it all
Absolutely.
at once.
Yeah, you don't have to do it all at once. You can do one thing now and one thing in the future.
Hey, Brendan, one question follow up on that. I mean, if a homeowner is, we're electrification geeks here, so we assume everybody on this call, wants to electrify their home. If you're, you could tell us if that's not the case out there in the chat or something. But if one of your goals is to electrify your home, is it important to make that clear to the auditor? So, and would the auditor do anything different, or would you, like how does that affect? Because a lot of times we're just thinking about, and I'm sure the auditor is thinking, well, okay, this is a gas heated home. I want to make sure that it's as efficiently run as possible. But for our audience, electrification is such a big deal. Does that change the audit process?
It doesn't change the process, but it will change the recommendations from the auditor. They may be more apt to recommend electrification measures if they know that that's your goal. And that's really important to tell. That is a fantastic point you bring up, Brian, to tell your auditor that that's your goal, because electrification has to be done in certain steps. If you don't prioritize like building shell weatherization first, you need to do that first before you go after an electrification project. If you do things out of sequence, you can be left uncomfortable or have a high energy bill. So the process is the same, but the things that the auditor is going to specify or recommend are going to be different. So that should definitely be a conversation you have on the front end.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that's a great question to ask somebody before you hire them, because some auditors are really comfortable with the problem solving of trying to propose an electrification upgrade, and others are just less familiar with it. And you would want to find that out before you pay for an assessment, and they kind of show you a roadmap to a different end result. But Joe, you said roadmap, and that's exactly what I was going to say. You shouldn't feel pressure to do everything all at once. Sometimes a report will tell you that, your system is relatively inefficient, but it has 5 more years of useful life left. So it's more about, in that case, preparing for when that piece of equipment is no longer going to be useful to get a better piece of equipment. And so you just can plan ahead better, I think, is one of the major goals.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great place to leave it, I think.
Yeah, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm really glad we dug into this with you both, and it's great to have such experienced people to help us through this. I hope this is helpful to all you out there in the audience, and hopefully we got through most of the questions. If any of you have a burning question that you feel didn't get answered, please email Joe or I will try to get that answered for you.
Yeah, so huge thanks, Madeline. Thanks, Bryn. Yeah, really appreciate having you on. And as we say every webinar, good luck on your electrification projects. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Love
Thanks
it.
for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.